She was the epitome of a Hollywood glamour radiant on the silver screen, adored by fans and admired for her talents. But behind the scenes, Ruth Chatterton's life was filled with pain, heartbreak, and a battle for control over her career. How did the star of the silent film era navigate the explosive rise of talkies, a tumultuous divorce, and a constant struggle to be more than just a pretty face? In a world where women were often trapped in roles that defined them by their looks alone, Ruth dared to challenge the system. From being humiliated by industry giants to facing betrayal and scandal, Ruth's life was as dramatic as the films she starred in. What happened when the spotlight faded and the camera stopped rolling? Let's uncover the shocking truth about Ruth Chatterton's rise to fame and the personal battles she fought behind closed doors. Ruth Chatterton's story is one of remarkable resilience, ambition, and artistry. In an industry where stars were often manufactured, Ruth's ascent was entirely of her own making. Hollywood, with its allure of fame, fortune, and glamour, had a way of swallowing young dreams, but Ruth was determined to control her own destiny. Born on Christmas Eve in 1892, Ruth was raised in the heart of New York City, a bustling metropolis teeming with culture, art, and opportunity. Yet, despite a privileged upbringing and a somewhat traditional familial setting, Ruth's experiences shaped her into a woman who sought freedom beyond the conventional expectations of society. From an early age, she understood the value of independence, and this would become the central theme of her life's work. While Ruth's parents came from a wealthy background, their turbulent marriage and eventual divorce set the stage for her own self-reliance. As a teenager, Ruth witnessed the fragility of traditional family dynamics, and this early exposure to life's uncertainties may have contributed to her unrelenting drive to carve her own path in the world. In the face of such personal upheavals, Ruth's passion for performance became a source of solace. It was on the stage that she would begin to find her voice, making her mark in Broadway productions and showing early signs of the depth and complexity she would later bring to Hollywood films. Ruth's entry into the world of acting was not marked by immediate success, but rather by sheer tenacity and a willingness to endure long hours, small roles, and constant auditions. After graduating from the prestigious Burleigh School in New York, Ruth moved on to study at the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts. It was here, amidst the vibrant theater scene of New York, that she honed her craft and nurtured her ambitions. In the early stages of her career, Ruth found herself often typecast in roles that required her to be a picture of sophistication and grace, roles that would later define her star image. Her Broadway debut came in 1921 when she starred in the production The Last of Mrs. Cheyney. Although she was still relatively unknown at the time, Ruth's performance impressed critics and audiences alike, marking her as a rising star. This success would be the springboard for what would be an extraordinary cinematic journey. The theater was her proving ground, and Ruth took her craft seriously, determined to excel. During this time, she was often compared to the great actresses of the stage, but her eye was always on Hollywood. It was in the cinematic world where she truly believed her complex emotional range would be best showcased. In the late 1920s, Ruth was offered a film contract by Warner Bros., marking the start of her Hollywood journey. The transition from theater to film was a daunting one, as the two mediums are vastly different in terms of performance. The film industry, still heavily reliant on silent films, posed a unique challenge for Ruth. Without the benefit of sound, she would have to rely on her expressive face, physicality, and emotive body language to convey emotions. Her first significant role came with Sins of the Flesh 1928, where Ruth portrayed a woman caught in a scandalous affair. Though the film itself was relatively obscure, Ruth's performance as a conflicted woman was powerful enough to catch the attention of industry insiders. She quickly became known for her ability to capture the vulnerability and complexity of women on screen, qualities that would remain a hallmark of her career. However, it was with Madame X 1929 that Ruth truly solidified her status as a Hollywood star. The film, a drama about a woman forced into a life of scandal and deceit, showcased Ruth's ability to convey deep emotional turmoil. She played the role of a fallen woman with a tragic yet fierce resolve, a part that would challenge the typical image of the glamorous, untouchable movie star. Ruth's portrayal was complex and nuanced, showcasing the emotional depth she would come to be known for. Critics praised her, and audiences were captivated by her ability to bring such a human element to a role that could easily have been reduced to melodrama. As the world of cinema began to embrace sound, Ruth's career was tested by the arrival of the talkie era. Many actors of the silent film generation struggled with the transition, as they were not accustomed to the nuances of speaking on screen. Ruth, however, proved that she had more than just a pretty face. Her voice was deep, rich, and commanding, perfectly complementing her on-screen presence. In The Crash 1932, Ruth showcased her talents in a film that explored the destructive power of greed during the stock market crash. Here, Ruth's voice, a steady, powerful instrument, perfectly matched the cynical and intense atmosphere of the film. The early 1930s marked a pivotal moment in Ruth's career, as she became one of the most prominent actresses of the talkie era. Yet she was not just a pretty face in glamorous gowns, she was a true actress capable of capturing a wide range of emotions. Her performances often found her in complex roles that defied the typical romanticized female characters of the time. In films such as Dangerous 1935, Ruth played women who were far from the typical damsels in distress. She was a woman who could hold her own, even in the most challenging of situations. However, her career in Hollywood was not without its difficulties. Ruth, like many women of the era, was often confined to roles that were dictated by the industry's narrow view of femininity. As time went on, Ruth grew frustrated with the lack of creative control over her career. Unlike many of her peers who were content with the glamorous roles offered to them, Ruth began to search for something more meaningful. What set Ruth apart from her contemporaries was her unwillingness to conform to the expectations placed upon her. In an industry that often reduced women to mere objects of desire or passive romantic figures, Ruth sought roles that reflected her intelligence and independence. She wanted to show the world that women, especially actresses, could be more than just pretty faces or love interests. Ruth became vocal about her dissatisfaction with the stereotypical roles being offered to women in Hollywood. She was not simply an actress, she was an artist, and she demanded respect for her craft. In the mid-1930s, Ruth's frustrations with Hollywood led her to consider other creative avenues. Her love for literature became more prominent, and she began writing. Ruth's novels, including The Lady in the Morgue 1933, allowed her to explore themes of mystery, human nature, and the complexities of the female psyche. Her writing was intelligent, reflective, and in many ways a critique of the very society that had shaped her Hollywood career. Her transition from actress to writer was a natural progression, and it allowed her to finally escape the constraints that Hollywood had placed upon her. As Ruth's film career began to slow down, she made the decision to return to the stage, a place where she had always felt most at home. In the late 1930s, she appeared in several Broadway productions, including The Old Maid 1935, which was a critical and commercial success. Broadway gave Ruth the opportunity to stretch her artistic muscles in ways that films never could. The immediacy of live theater allowed her to showcase her full range of talent. It was also in these years that Ruth's own personal transformation was most evident. She was no longer the glamorous film star of the 1920s and 1930s. She was a seasoned actress, a writer, and a woman who had defined her own legacy. Her time on Broadway also marked a period of creative rejuvenation for Ruth. No longer bound by the demands of Hollywood, she found herself able to fully express her artistic vision. She was able to work with directors and playwrights who respected her for her craft, not just her looks, and this newfound respect allowed Ruth to flourish in a way that Hollywood had never permitted. Ruth's career wasn't always as glamorous as it appeared. She was frustrated with Hollywood's limitations on women, especially in an era where women were often reduced to window dressing. Ruth's desire for more complex, substantive roles was met with resistance, as the industry was reluctant to break from its formulaic portrayals of women. She faced harsh criticism from the media, which often focused more on her beauty than her acting abilities. This superficial treatment deeply troubled Ruth, as she sought to be known for her intellectual and artistic prowess, not just her looks. Ruth's marriage to J. Frank Wilson, a film director, ended in a bitter divorce. At the time, Hollywood's reputation for quick divorces wasn't uncommon, but Ruth's experience was especially painful. The dissolution of their marriage not only caused personal turmoil but also affected her professional life. As her personal life was scrutinized by the public, Ruth found herself battling to maintain her dignity and control over her career in an environment that often fed off scandal and gossip. Despite her acting skills and intelligence, Ruth was often pigeonholed into roles that did not allow her to fully showcase her abilities. She was forced to play types the glamorous, tragic women or the femme fatales, which frustrated her. Her attempts to break out of this mold, including her interest in directing and producing, were often met with resistance. She once said in an interview that her struggles in Hollywood were less about finding work and more about finding meaningful roles that respected her intellect and experience. As Ruth moved through the later stages of her career, she also faced health issues that began to take a toll on her physically and mentally. The pressures of a relentless career, constant public scrutiny, and the demands of the entertainment industry caused strain, and she had to make difficult decisions about her future in the industry. Ruth also struggled to be taken seriously as a writer. After her film career waned, she turned to writing novels, but she faced skepticism and dismissal from critics who were quick to overlook her works because of her Hollywood background. This rejection only fueled her determination to prove that her creative talents extended beyond the silver screen. Today, Ruth Chatterton is remembered as much for her resilience and intelligence as she is for her acting. In an era when women were often relegated to the sidelines, Ruth's journey stands as a testament to the power of self-determination. Her legacy transcends her film roles. It is the legacy of a woman who refused to accept the limitations placed upon her by society and by the industry. Ruth Chatterton was not just a Hollywood star, she was a true artist, a writer, and a woman who redefined what it meant to be a leading lady in a world that often sought to confine women to certain roles. Her work, both on screen and off, continues to inspire generations of women in the entertainment industry and beyond. Ruth's story reminds us that true greatness doesn't come from conforming to expectations, it comes from having the courage to break free from them. Ruth Chatterton was, and remains, a shining example of what it means to live life on your own terms.